Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being with us in class. Jason is engineering the broadcast at GCN in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli, and if you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. Rich Sheben's with us, offgridmontana.com. Welcome, Rich Sheben.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Finelli. How are you doing this morning?
I knew you were going to say that. And I'm frosted. I'm angry. I'm miffed. I'm peeved. And why? Well, Apple Computer has sold, we have not talked about this, Rich. Apple Computer in 2017, fiscal 2017, reported it sold 217 million iPhones. Okay, in fiscal 2017. Probably more in fiscal 2018. And headlines, CNBC. I mean, this is mainstream, right? Quote, Apple FaceTime bug lets you listen in on people you call, even if they haven't picked up their phone. A bug in FaceTime lets you listen to the audio if you try to call someone, even if they don't pick up. You first video call someone, then you try to add yourself to the group call. The FaceTime bug, let me repeat that, bug, let me repeat it a different way, bug seems to be a huge privacy problem. Apple is run by a queer by the name of Tim Cook. He's the CEO. Now, he is perverted. He's perverted. Being a homosexual means that you like having sex with the same sex. So, man having sex with man, women having sex with women. That is what a homosexual is. It's a perversion. It's, well, what's the definition of a pervert? That would be distort, warp, corrupt, subvert, twist, bend, abuse, divert, deflect, misapply, misuse, misrepresent, misinterpret, misconstrue, falsify, and the list goes on. So Apple is run by one of those perverts, Tim Cook. How can you trust a company like Apple, run by a pervert, to represent your interest and your privacy? He's an outed homosexual. It's not like we're making this up. He admits he likes men. And Apple has what they call a bug in their software. A bug. No, it's not a bug. It was, in my opinion, it had to be intentionally designed. This is something that we have been talking about for years and years, about how they, the other team, can turn on your cell phone, listen through your microphone, watch through your cameras on your cell phone, whatever is happening, and they can do it remotely. So if you have that cell phone on your dresser in your bedroom charging, they can turn it on. This is now mainstream admitting that they caught Apple doing this, meaning you can do this. They say it's a bug. It had to be intentionally designed in. Now, in the past, I've written some computer programs, and I know a little bit about what it takes to write a computer program. These are intentional steps that were taken in order to remotely turn on your phone for audio monitoring, video monitoring without your knowledge. Now it is mainstream news that we were absolutely right. I'm angry. I'm angry that this pervert would allow this. But why wouldn't he? He's perverted. And what happens in the stock market? Apple stock is up a little over 0.5% since yesterday. It's up because the GDP doesn't understand what's going on. GDP stands for generally dumb public. And what makes me even more angry is that the GDP thinks that they can come on my property with their cell phones and spy on me without their knowledge because they're so dumb they don't get it. Or they do get it, but they think it doesn't apply to them. Or they think that somebody else's phones are the ones that are being turned on remotely. It wouldn't happen to them. I can't stand it because the first thing that someone does when they come into my house, previously, would be they'd take their cell phone out of their pocket and put it on my kitchen table. It makes me angry. It's like the centerpiece of every kitchen table, every dining room table, every coffee table, wherever people are. Now, you know that if the GDP watching ball games or whatever people do, and they go to a friend's house and they're having a couple beers watching a ball game, they're going to have their cell phones out on that coffee table in front of the TV. Every word that they say goes out. To whom? Parasites and perverts. Like whom? Tim Cook and ilk like that. I can't stand it. I'm angry. And we've allowed it. Not only do we allow it, we spend $40, $50, $60, $100, $200 a month to allow these parasites to watch us, to listen in. Why not put a loudspeaker next to your bedroom and a microphone on your dresser or your nightstand and broadcast to the whole neighborhood everything that's going on in your bedroom? That'd be a good start, right? That's what these people are like. That's what they want to know everything about you. Google is now selling your data. Where you are, where you go, where they think you're going to go because of where you've been. You go to the same gas station, you stop at the same pump on the same days. You go to the same supermarket, you take the same path, you come in the door and you turn right and you go up and down the aisles. They know your moves, your path, your preferences, your timing. They know when you take a shower. They know when you cook your dinner. They know when you get up late. They know when you're walking, riding a bicycle, or in a car because of the speed of the movement of the signal from your phone. Can I say it any plainer? I don't think so. I'm frosted. How, they say, when Bill Clinton couldn't keep his zipper up, former ilk, Bill Jefferson Blythe Clinton, CEO of Corporate USA. They say, well, what he does is, in the bedroom is his own business. What I'm here to say is it's not like that. It's not like a switch. These are their personalities. These are what they're like. You can't trust people that are like this. So, he sells our secrets to China. He makes sure that he sells tainted blood. And people die because he gets the prisoners to donate blood in Arkansas prisons. This is Bill Clinton when he was governor of Arkansas. Look it up. I'm not making this up. We've been sold out by people that supposedly we're supposed to look up to. How do you look up to people like this, like Harvey Weinstein, whatever his name is? How do you look up to somebody like that who abuses women? How do you look up to someone who has sex in the Oval Office of the White House? How do you look up to a Tim the homo? How do you do that? I don't. I don't look up to these people. As a matter of fact, I'm so angry. Right here, as Rush Limbaugh would do, shuffling the papers. Got a tax return. Filled it out yesterday. Missouri Department of Revenue. They want us to pay taxes for tires that were sold on our farm. And they have a form for it. I don't like their form. I'm not filling out their form. So I did the best I could with some lined paper. I printed it as neatly as I could. I have all the information I think that they need. As a matter of fact, that has all the information they're going to get. Fewer words. And at the bottom, it says, consultation rate is $250 per hour if you need my assistance. 8-hour minimum. I'm telling the Missouri Department of Revenue, if they don't understand this and they need clarification, I'll be glad to provide it at $250 per hour, 8-hour minimum. I've had it with these parasites. So how you doing, Rich?
Well, I happen to know that we're going to have a commercial real soon, so are you going to give me a chance to not rebuttal, but comment on what you just said? I'm not even going to start because the commercial's starting, but give me a chance to address some of the things that you had said to the best of my ability, and then let's go to some articles that will actually relate to what you're saying.
There you go. Rich Sheben's with us, off-grid Montana. I've got my blood pressure cuff ready to go. I'm going to hit the button right now. And I took my blood pressure, and it's coming down. Really. I mean, I only took it twice, but it's coming down. I didn't want to take it.
All right, I'm going to give you a break, buddy. I'm going to give you a break. Give me a chance.
I'm just going to sit down and relax. And yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. First of all, as far as all the manipulation is concerned, there's an article right here. Google's manipulating YouTube searches results to program users' behavior. Everybody's been, even though they don't admit it, everybody knows that this has been going on for a very long time. The same thing with if it's a conservative type book, if it's based on truth, or if it's to benefit, empower the little people, the elite are going to basically demonize, discredit, and delegitimize all those sites, all those books, and all that information. Now, when you were talking about sex, okay, now give me a chance to put this in context, if you don't mind, Vince, so our listeners can hear what I have to say. I always talk about, and have been for years, adult mutual consensual sex. See, the powers that be want to shove certain behaviors down other people's throat for a divide and conquer strategy so they can normalize pedophilia. But it's not just the Bill Clintons. It goes to many different people. And I'm trying to get my computer is just killing me here. Here's an article, Willie Brown, Kamala Harris threatened him with indictment after their affair ended, but helped launch her political career. So it goes absolutely both ways. There's another article here, this from the Daily Caller. And by the way, that article, folks, was on citizenfreepress.com. A lot of people I'm reading on the internet are not real happy with Drudge Report these days, and they think he's being turned by the elite somehow through intimidation or bribes or something. I don't know, but this is the comments I'm reading. And looks like a really good website, which could replace Drudge Report. It's citizenfreepress.com, and I'm on it right now. And here's an article saying that repercussions of Me Too movement has just set us back decades, says female leadership expert. Quote, a number of men have told me that they will be avoiding going to dinner with a female mentee, or they're concerned about deploying a woman solo on site with a male. This is, and what really angers me, Vince, okay, I'll use your term frosted here, is the fact that people think that certain movements are for certain groups, okay? You got to remember the elite wants us to be divided. They want us to be divided by every group imaginable. Race, sex, gender, religion, sexual orientation, ideology, generation. That's why there's race baiting, gender baiting going on. What, whether it be women or any group, should be concerned about? And this is the bottom, this is the denominator in the math equation, and that is lowering the bars of standards and expectations for getting a job and keeping a job. When you read Alinsky, when you read Marx, the Communist Manifesto, Cloward and Piven, everything is designed to lower the bars of standards and expectations to divide us people. Now, the Kavanaugh effect has basically, and let me back up even a moment here. Every word, every gesture, every sentence and paragraph that comes from the mainstream media has been sanctioned. I think everybody has seen the fact that when CBS says something, so does NBC, so does CNN, so does BuzzFeed. They're all bought and paid for. They're beyond fake news. And I'm going to go into a little more detail after the break, man.
Rich Eben's with us, offgridmontana.com. Rich Eben's with us. Rich, just a quick comment. Bottom of the hour news. 4 cops were killed in Houston, Texas. And the spokesperson for the union of the police said he's sick and tired of having targets on their backs. And the cops are sick and tired of having targets on their backs. Well, that's not exactly what happened. And according to CNN.com, headline, 4 Houston police officers shot while serving a warrant. 4 Houston police officers were shot and another suffered a knee injury on Monday while serving a warrant. Police Chief Art Azevedo said about a dozen narcotics officers and several patrol officers responded to a residence where police suspected drugs were being sold. The chief said Monday night. The narcotics officers announced themselves as they breached the front door shortly before 5 p.m. Let me say that a different way. The narcotics officers announced themselves as they breached the front door. And these guys are saying they're tired of having targets on their backs. These guys are announcing themselves while they're bashing through the front door. Immediately upon breaching the door, the officers came under fire from 1 or 2 suspects inside the house. They bashed in the front door of this house, and then the shooting started. They announced themselves while they were bashing in the front door. Really? You bash in the front door of somebody's house and you expect them to just say, oh, that's okay. Really? And the cops say that they've got targets on their backs? These are the guys that plant evidence. These are the guys that are on the same team as the judge and the bailiff and the jailer and the prosecutor, all being paid with our tax funds. That's who these guys are. These are the guys that snipe with radar guns. They've got tasers, batons, tear gas, grenades, AR-15s, sometimes automatic weapons, 18-round magazines in their handguns, computers, cars that can outrun most cars on the road, and they say they've got targets on their back. Please. We said this would happen years ago. We said if they don't knock it off, this would happen. We didn't say, please let it happen. We said we don't want it to happen. But here it is. We said it would happen. We said that phones were used as spy tools. They are. I'm not trying to pat our instructors on the back for saying we're right all the time, but we are right a lot. We're out front, and we're right a lot. Rich?
All right. Well, you've said a lot. As far as the police situation, I would have to get more information about what actually happened, because what comes from the mainstream media, it's not just fake news. It's designed to divide. Everybody in the mainstream media is paid for propaganda, lies, false flags. It's theater. That's all it is. Okay? Now, as far as the police situation goes, again, I don't know specifically what happened, so I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I've given solutions, broad-based solutions on how to fix the situation and invoke the 10th Amendment and don't allow feds training. And it's very obvious that the CIA, the FBI, and a lot of these alphabet agencies are bought and paid for, at least half of the department. And it's so obvious that, the FISA warrants and has been paid for, and the fraud behind it by Hillary Clinton and the DNC, but the mainstream media never talks about it. So it's really discouraging to the people when they see a different set of rules, laws, and accountability based on what group you're in. And, take the military weapons away from the police. I think the number one thing, the two big things we have to do, and I think most police wear cameras, that's one of them, not just to protect the people, but to protect the officers. Because I've seen, there was just a few days ago, a video and an article that showed this guy tried to shoot this police officer in the face. And he was lucky enough to have his hand on his gun, and after the perp fired a couple of shots because the cop hit his hand and made a miss, the cop killed him. So I think what we should do is every county needs to have citizen review boards, which has authority over everything from police brutality to everything. And this would, because the whole system is fake, it's phony, it's corrupt, it's manipulative, it's full of nepotism. The whole system, the stock market, the economy, and I talked about this in great detail and specificity. We need citizen review boards and public forums for ideas and solutions to move forward as a country, or else we are going to fail. And it's going to be just the aristocracy, the owners managing the serfs in every way, shape, and form. Now, going back to what you said last time, Vince, and I didn't even come close to getting through it, the Kavanaugh effect. When you have all these people, including women who are advancing careers through sex, as Willie Brown stated, these are some quotes from, let's just take Wall Street. No more dinners with female colleagues. Don't sit next to them on flights. Book hotel rooms on different floors. Avoid one-on-one meetings. You know, he says, in fact, as a wealth advisor, it is just hiring a woman these days is an unknown risk, because the Kavanaugh effect has made every man a gang rapist. See, the problem is you have a different set of rules, laws, and accountability for each group. And this is why it's group identity politics. This is why they dub it identity politics, because they don't want to use victim group status like Ben Carson uses or Candace Owen uses. They don't want to use protectionist group status. This is all what it is. The bottom line is we should raise the bars of standards and expectations for getting a job and keeping a job, and not lower it as we've done for decades. Another quote, if men avoid working or traveling with women alone or stop mentoring women for fear of being accused of sexual harassment, he said, these men are going to back out of sexual harassment complaint and right into a sexual discrimination complaint. Condoleezza Rice said regarding the Me Too movement that she's worried that women are turning into snowflakes and infants. Okay? Infants, that's code word for baby. Men would rather not have them around, she said. It's backfiring on women. You know, as long as we allow sanctioned messages that the elite allow to divide and conquer the people, we're going to continue to lower the bars of standards and expectations. And for those of you who have listened to me for years, you know that I've said when you lower the bars of standards and expectations for getting a job, what happens? It metastasizes like a cancer. And then we can't build skill sets to the public. We can't save people's lives. We can't grow an economy. That is what has happened. Vince?
I think you're right. I mean, an example of metastasizing what would the word be? If you look at the Nazis during World War II, you know, one of them would start shooting the innocents. And then a bunch of them would start shooting, and then they think it's okay. You know, let's go hunting for innocent people. People aren't moving fast enough. People who don't look like we do. People who don't believe the way we do. Let's just go kill them. And it spread. And during the Nuremberg trials, some of the defendants were asked, you know, why'd you do it? Why did you kill these people? Why'd you murder them? Well, we just got caught up in it. You know, other guys were doing it, so we all did it. It's unacceptable. It literally is unacceptable. And, you know, Gresham's Law, and it simply states that bad money chases out good money, okay? Federal Reserve notes bad money chases out gold and silver. Bad products chase out good products. We used to have durable products. We used to have products that would last a long time. When you bought a television set in the 1950s and the 1960s, you knew that you were going to keep it for a long time, and you could repair it. You could take off the screws yourself on the back of the cover of the chassis, access the tubes, take them out, bring them to the drugstore or the discount store where they had a tube tester. You could test them yourselves, and you could replace them. They were designed to last a long time. Now a television is designed to last a short time. And you don't bring it to someone to repair it or repair it yourself. You throw it away. The only kind of service that you have on a television today is for technical support. You know, when they crash, when your smart television crashes because it's a computer. It's a computer that watches what you do with its camera. It listens to what the sounds are in the room with its microphone. You don't have a receiver. It's not a television receiver anymore. It's a television computer transmitter receiver. And if it connects to the internet, it's two ways. It sends signals out to the internet and receives signals from the internet. It's a two-way device. It's not just a receiver. Think about that, class. Think about that. And think about what you're doing with your smartphones. And think about what you're doing with your routers and Echo and Alexa and all these other silly devices that are tracking and spying on you that are going, and the evidence is going to be used against you. For Sheben's with us, George in New Hampshire, USA Preparedness Instructor, is calling in. Welcome, George.
Hi, Vincent. Hi, Rich.
Hey, George.
I just wanted to weigh in on the police matter there. You know, the police have to clean out their ranks. They have to. They have people who are hiding behind a badge, who rob, steal, abuse, and generally intimidate and really, prey upon the public. And the sad thing is that they won't do it. They'll join ranks and they'll protect each other. Look at Roger Stone, who was recently arrested. They got him out in the middle of the night. His poor wife and him are in bed. Now there's a guy who's in his late 60s. He wears very thick glasses, I guess, and hardly a threat. They sent 40 police SWAT. I think they sent the SWAT team down just to basically arrest him in the middle of the night. Now, this is Gestapo tactics. This was what they did in Nazi Germany when they'd have men running upstairs in the middle of the night. Nobody would be around and seeing them, and they'd basically whisk you away into the night. And then they set a bail of $250,000 on a man who's not going anywhere. Fortunately, Mr. Stone was able to come up with the money. He was able to come up with he must have a panel of lawyers behind him. Now, the average person doesn't have this. But what I'm saying is that they're grandstanding, and they're coming on like the Gestapo and the Nazis. And why would they not think that a population that increasingly is becoming like an occupied population that can't even look to its own to serve and protect, that's painted on the sides of the cars? I'm sorry, too many of them are falling far short of it, and the other ones are intimidated to say anything, because if they say something against another officer, there's a good chance that they might not get back up at a critical time.
Well, yes,
George.
And I'll tell you something.
Hold on one second. George, I have never heard you so passionate. You need to check your blood pressure, too.
Well, they have medication that God knows what it'll do to our bodies in the long term, and our kidneys in particular, to keep us dumbed down, and they'll give us antidepressants because nobody would want to live like this. And the whole system's geared to basically extracting us from cradle to grave, to basically prey on us, dumb us down, sicken us. And what I'm saying, it gets to the point that it's like the man on that network movie there that put his head out the window. He goes, I want you to put your head out the window and scream at the top of your lungs, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. But it has to be said that there's too many corrupt officials, and this country was not designed, nor was the Constitution meant for anyone except the noble people who have integrity. And if we don't have integrity, what good is it?
I absolutely
agree with you.
Well,
George, it's got the potential to get a lot worse. If I may, Vince, Roger Stone arrest was intimidation because they do not have Russian collusion on Trump. So what they're doing is they're trying to go after everybody in Trump's hemisphere in order to show this Nazi Gestapo stuff that you need to keep your mouth shut. It's basically demonization. It's basically to break people's will. And that's what it's all for. Right now, if you look what's happening in Europe, Europe is a few years ahead of us, okay? And non-elected officials, and be aware of official authorities and be aware of so-called experts, because they're usually hired but paid for by the elite and the mainstream media, okay? So look at what Macron and Merkel did. They're putting together an EU army. These are unelected officials, by the way, not Macron and Merkel. They were put in there. They were paid to get in there by the ruling elite, the EU, which are not elected officials. And now they're going to use immigrants, all these young people for years have been saying, how come all these military-age men are coming into Europe? Well, now you know. They're going to be hired, and the people of Europe, the taxpayers, pay for these people to come in from Africa and the Middle East, and now they're going to be paid by the taxpayers to be the European army. That's where we're heading if the people don't wake up and speak up.
George, would you like to hold through the top of the hour news and commercial announcements?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. It'll give us all a chance to lower our blood pressure. We are angry. Class, we are really angry. And with good cause. With good cause. Because the other team lies, cheats, steals, doesn't play fair, gangs up on us, breaches through our doors in the middle of the night. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Got a couple of quick comments. Now, putting on a uniform does not make a person a good person. Sheriff's deputies often wear brown uniforms. So did Ernst Röhm's SA Nazis. Police wear black uniforms. So did Heinrich Himmler's SS Nazis. Luftwaffe and Kriegsmarine Nazis wore blue uniforms. So do some cops. TSA wears blue uniforms when they put their hands down blouses, up skirts, and down people's pants. Uniforms do not make a person good. And when you think about what George said and Rich Scheben said, we're talking about middle of the night, bashing down doors, and then the cops say, hey, we're tired of being targets? Are they kidding? Who's the target? So they bash down your door in the middle of the night with one team, and that team takes you to the clink. You get processed. You're on your feet, no sleep. Next thing you know, you're in court. You are not at your best. You're overwhelmed by this cadre of people who are interested in getting another notch on their conviction belt. So you are off balance all the time by these guys, yelling and screaming at you, pointing guns at you, handcuffing you, pushing you around, slapping you in cells, not letting you eat right or sleep right or drink right. And we're supposed to respect these people? Come on. George?
I'll say this. You know, what do they say? The old Roman maxim, who shall guard the gods? And power corrupts. Now, I've seen it where wallets would disappear when people would be arrested. If a police officer ended up being suspected of doing something wrong, he'd be put on paid administrative leave, which I would translate out to be as paid vacation. And yet, if a person's falsely arrested and we're supposed to be guilty until proven innocent, and yet they're chained, they're processed, they're thrown into a cell, they're cut off from family, they're cut off from being able to communicate. The telephones inside prisons, from what I understand, are recorded, and you can't make a phone call out. Now, granted, there are criminals that, jails were built for, but the problem is, as soon as you get in, as Rich even says here, is that I remember, in other words, you're innocent until proven you're guilty until you could prove with power attorneys and all kinds of money and resources that you're not innocent, or that you're not guilty, rather. So, Rich, what do you think?
Well, I have an article here, George, titled Warped Wishful Thinking. The Atlantic's Dick Pullman believes the Democrat Party needs a new massacre to make gun control first-tier story. So when we have the powers that be buying and paying for false flags, just like what Macron did with these red scarves to combat the volunteer we the people of the yellow vest, okay, when you have the powers that be paying the Antifas of the world and the Black Lives Matters of the world. And then you have the police standing back while Antifa, in front of the police, are doing violent crimes in front of the cops. It's very confusing and difficult for the people to respect the police. Now, I do believe that there are, and this is happening mostly when you look at these Democrats who are calling for false flags, calling for massacres, a new massacre. It's pretty obvious that these false flags that happen are bought and paid for, whether it be through mind control or drugs or antipsychotic drugs, or people who owe somebody favors, or people, or who knows whatever's going on behind closed doors. Nobody knows. But what we do know is math. We do know statistics. We do know data that gun-free zones and sanctuary cities are the worst crimes and the worst murders, statistically. So what we need to address is the solutions and the ideas. And we need to have public forums. That's the problem. The people are not, because of things like NewsGuard and the bought and paid for mainstream media, we are not allowed to speak up, and we're being our voices are not being heard. We need to establish citizen review boards to have authority over all police brutality and get rid of the commissioners, get rid of lawyers, the judges, the bankers, the politicians are all bought and paid for by the super wealthy, by the elite. And they keep using the word diversity and equality and all this crap. Well, we're in a time that's very obvious that true diversity isn't skin pigmentation shade or genders or sexual orientation or religion. It's ideas and solution that's intellectual for the benefit of the people. We have to start thinking outside the box, not lowering the bars of standards for victim group status based on what job you're in. When we hear a lot of this information coming from the mainstream media, George, Vince, and listeners, there's very little real news that comes from the mainstream media. It's used to distract, dumb down, and divide the American people. It's also used to create demonizations, to discredit, to delegitimize individuals so the status quo can occur. It's to introduce new laws, policies, and precedents to, again, lower the bars of standards and expectations for getting a job, which is metastasized like a cancer, and basically lower the standards for traditions, culture, and heritage in order to funnel money and opportunity away from the bottom 93%. And they're where we not only can not control our own destiny, but it's affecting our safety. And pardon the tangent here, it's just like the wall. All we got to do is say no welfare, no food stamps to anybody who comes in as an illegal immigrant or a legal immigrant unless they're here for 15 years, paying and putting into the kitty. And then lawyers and judges who allow illegals to come in get financially wiped out and sued if that illegal does a crime that lawyer and judge approve them to come through into our country. It's so easy to fix. But the problem is the elite pays the middle management goons, like some of the ones I just mentioned, lawyers, judges, politicians, and bankers, in order to keep the status quo. There's so many easy ways to fix these solutions. But see, we are not getting the microphone on the national level. And if we do, it gets distorted, it gets taken out of context, we get talked over. And that's why the powers that be are telling the people on the ground to yell, scream, chant, because they can't compete in the arena of ideas and solutions like the new media / the alternative media, which they like to use. It's so obvious. Every move they make, they're telegraphing. Everything. It's incredibly obvious. And the first thing we need, which I've talked about till I'm blue in the face, George and Vince, is practice what you preach laws. And I can come up with thousands of them. I use a couple because we have very limited time on the air. Like, let's talk about, since we're talking about guns and police officers, let's just say, well, if Hollywood or some rich guy has security guards or hires them to protect them, then the little people could too. If they want to create a carbon tax, then let's allocate all this travel time and all these big houses that the elite have around the world and all the private jets and even public transportation they use, and let's look at their carbon footprint. If they do it, we do it. Okay, practice what you preach laws. If we had practice what you preach laws, probably 80% of the crap that we talk about on the air would be fixed. But see, the powers that be, including the Republicans, do not want to do it because it's all a game. It's all the manufacturing perception, swaying public opinion to hold on to the narratives, so the status quo can maintain its addiction to power, money, and control.
You said practice what you preach. You said practice what you preach, Rich.
Yes, practice what you preach laws.
Yeah, I gave the class an example. I said that I filed a report. It's a tire fee. We have to collect a tire fee for every tire we sell in Missouri. And the state wants that money. So I said, okay, here's the filing. I did it in my own sheet of paper. I made up my own form. I refused to use their form. I'm not going to do it. I use my own form with all the information that I think they need, and it says at the bottom, and this is practice what you preach, right? Consultation rate is $250 per hour if you need my assistance. 8-hour minimum. What I'm telling them is they charge me for everything. If I want to go to a park, they charge me. If I want to have license plates, they charge me. They charge me every way they can think of. Anything that moves, they tax. Things that don't move, they regulate. Okay? They charge us for everything. And I'm saying, okay, here's a Rich Scheben example. Practice what you preach. If they can do it, I'm going to do it. Class, that's what I did. And I'm sending this in just that way. Consultation rate is $250 per hour if you need my assistance. 8-hour minimum. And when these parasites call me up or send me a letter, I'm going to say the clock just started. You've already spent 8 hours times $250 per hour.
Yeah, I mean, that would be fine. I personally, I think most people would love to see government reduced by 95% because there's so many irrelevant jobs. And they get paid so much more than the private sector with total protection. There's hardly any attrition rate. It's almost impossible to fire them, and they get a big fat pension. It's a total scam.
George said something absolutely important. George, I'd like to hear a little bit more when we come back from this break. You said cops get paid administrative leave. That's versus those who are falsely arrested, who are accused and can't go to work until they get out of the clink. They lose their jobs. They can't pay their mortgage. They lose their houses and the cars. Let's compare that. So when a cop does something like murder someone, shoots them in the back when they're running away from the police, cops get put on administrative leave and they get paid. Cops have been caught on their own body cameras planting evidence in Baltimore. Planting evidence. That's lying, cheating, false accusations. That's what they do. They've been caught doing it with their own body cameras. And what happens to people like that? Well, they get put on administrative paid leave. George said it best. It's a vacation. George, please continue. Randy in Houston, you'll be up next.
Yeah, I'll say this, is that there's been police officers caught right in the act of stealing, or they were caught in the back seat with an underage girl, and they were allowed to retire and get their pensions. And you say to yourself, or if they're really caught in a heinous crime where it's going to come back on and they can't do damage control, they're fired. So, all right, they lose their job. But then they can go to another place and get a law enforcement job somewhere else. And then they showed that man, I won't go on. I'll just say they showed this officer. There was an unconscious individual that they had brought in from an accident. So he ordered the nurse against policy, and it was the policy that was agreed from the police and the hospital administration saying, okay, these are the guidelines we're going to go by, and they both signed off on it. And they wanted them to extract blood so they could do an alcohol analysis on this man. Now, he was unconscious. He could not give his permission. So the nurse came out and said, listen, I can't do that because this violates the agreements that you and I make. Now, there were 7 or 8 cops standing around. Now, she was just telling him, she goes, I can't do that until he regains consciousness and I can get permission. I said, because that's a violation of the guidelines that the police agreed to and the hospital administration. Next thing you know, he grabs her, puts cuffs on her, roughs her up very badly, and there's 6 other police officers standing around. You could see it on their faces. They weren't too happy, but they were afraid to say anything. So rather than stand up and say, excuse me, you're out of line, to the other officer to say, look, you're out of line, you don't treat her like that. They all shut their mouth and just kind of like shut their mouth. And then they said, this guy, she got a sizable settlement later on, but that wasn't her intent. She was in tears. And she goes, what am I being arrested for? And the other officers are standing there. You could tell they don't agree with what's going on, but they won't say a word. And they found out that that officer had been fired from another law enforcement outfit that for doing similar things. Now, that guy's not arrested. He doesn't go to jail. He doesn't suffer the same consequences as an ordinary, average American citizen who falls afoul of their nets. And the sad thing is that there are decent cops out there, but the problem is if they stand by, shut their mouth, and don't clean out their own ranks, then they're going to part and parcel be lumped in together with these corrupt, detrimental, poor excuses for human beings hiding behind a badge and a uniform who are acting like the Gestapo or the East German Stasi.
Well, you're absolutely right. And the article that you're referring to, or the story you're referring to, was from July of 2017 when a nurse in Utah prevented or tried to prevent the cop from drawing blood from a patient. Tried to. And the nurse gets arrested for doing the right thing. That's the problem. That is absolutely the problem. Now, what really should happen is the mayor should be fired. The mayor of Salt Lake City, because this happened in Salt Lake City. The police chief should be fired. All the top lieutenants should be fired. All of the top brass should be fired when this happens. And that'll send a signal that this cannot continue, because this kind of policing is allowed by the culture of the government corporation of that city. It doesn't happen without being blessed. The blue plague, the blue glue, doesn't happen without being blessed. It's all blessed by top management.
I know you got somebody waiting on the other line, so I'll sign off then. But it was good hearing you. And God bless Cousin Vinny, and take care, Rich.
See you, George.
Bye-bye.
George in New Hampshire, thank you so much. Randy in Houston, you're on next with Rich Scheben. We'll be right back. You know, when my mom was alive, when I would leave the farmhouse, for a short time, I'd say, Mom, now she was in her 90s. I'd say, Mom, you remember, right? She'd go, yeah, I know. Don't let the cops in. And my mom, in her 90s, knew, no matter what they say, no matter what badge they flash, don't let the cops in. So the lesson for today is don't let the cops in, and don't buy Homo Tim's phones. Randy in Houston, Texas, welcome. You're on with Rich Scheben and me, Vin Finelli.
Hey, good morning, Vincent. Good morning, Rich. I just want to weigh in on this deal. When I got up this morning, about 5:15, I was listening to the news about this president of the Houston Police Officers Association, and that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth because I'm a CPA. I'm a college graduate. But I got to tell you, if they've got a target on their back, they did it to themselves. And they have alienated people like me. When I see the police coming down the street, just like I think it was Sunday evening. My little girl was riding her bike right in front of the house, and I live kind of like on a cul-de-sac, and the HPD came driving down the street. I made a comment to my daughter, you need to stay away from them. Now, law enforcement has a problem, but then so does the American people. For the most part, the American people are sheep. Far too often, they're praising the police and law enforcement for everything they do and giving them the benefit of the doubt when they do something wrong. Well, if you're praised all the time and you're told you're a great person, how are you going to act? You're going to act privileged, just like you're some type of royalty. Well, when I talk to my friends, when I talk to people, most of them are like, well, yeah, you're right. This is kind of out of control, but we need their help. Well, I don't think we do. They are doing more harm for society than they help. Now, do we need to be stopping the illegal drugs coming across the border? Absolutely. Do we need to be stopping crime? Absolutely. But that's not what this is about. Kicking a door in the middle of the night, if they kicked my door in, I'd be shooting too, even though I'm not doing anything illegal, because I'm not sure that they're the police or they're not. Well, I kind of got on a rant. Sorry.
Well, no, you're Randy in Houston. You are absolutely right. You said that people, I'm paraphrasing, that people say to you, we need their help. I called my sheriff because his deputy trespassed on my farm at night, in the middle of the night, riding around, snooping, fishing. I called my sheriff. That was on a Friday night. On Monday morning, I called my sheriff and I said, do not come on my farm. Do not trespass. Do not come on my farm. I was telling him in no uncertain terms, I do not need his help. I don't. I don't want his help. I don't want him coming on my property with guns. I don't trust him. Not just him. I don't trust any of them.
Just like I'm going to be the first to say I'm not a big Roger Stone fan. However, what was done to him the other night is absolutely outrageous. That's a waste of resources. And then to have their answer, well, we don't make the policy and it's our policy. What policy? Every time they do something wrong, they don't say, well, we followed the law. They never say that. They always say, well, we followed policy or we followed procedure.
And whose procedure? They make this stuff up. They make it up. Randy, I witnessed something that I couldn't believe. I was visiting on the East Coast just a couple years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And there was a party at this person's house in this neighborhood. And each house had about a half an acre. So the houses were not all that tightly packed. And it was a very nice neighborhood. Nothing out of place. It was very, very nice. Somebody called the cops on this party. The cops showed up in this huge truck. It was like a SWAT truck. It was an emergency response black truck. It must have cost $500,000. It was like an armored assault attack mobile command headquarters truck. And it looked like a fire department truck. But the guys that got out of the truck had sidearms. And I was outside and I watched them. And they unsnapped the safety snap on their holsters. as they were stepping out of the truck. This is a party with young people. It wasn't out of control. There were no, it wasn't wild. There weren't people running around naked. It wasn't fireworks going off. It was a party. And the cops showed up with this, well, that was just the first vehicle that showed up. They showed up in multiple vehicles, multiple officers, blue lights, red lights, white lights. They were going to tell us who's what. And I wasn't involved in the party. I was just a spectator or a bystander. But getting out of their car, getting out of this command vehicle, unholstering, that's nuts.
Well, there's a prevalent attitude in this country that law enforcement's welfare and lives are more important than mine. And I just absolutely am not going to accept that. Their life is not any less than mine. I don't say that their life is less, but their life is no more important than mine. But yet our society keeps telling them, oh, it's okay to do this. It's okay to do this. Well, no, it's not okay to do this. And I don't know what's going to happen to get people to pull their head out and realize that this type of action is not helping things long term. It's not even helping things short term. I am at a loss of what action, what words to say to people to get them to change.
Okay, I watched with Mrs. Finelli. I watched a video we have called Schindler's List. And it was about the Third Reich Nazi Germany and rounding up people and killing them. Mm-hmm. Class, if you want to see what could be coming our way, and it's not like we're imagining this. This happened. This is historical fact. These guys in black uniforms, these guys in tan uniforms were executing people because it felt like it. This has got to stop. And that's why I said we need to fire the top management. Fire the mayor, throw him overboard, recall him, put him in jail, arrest him. Mm-hmm. Fire the police chief, arrest him. Fire the top management, arrest them. When a cop shoots somebody in the back, arrest him. That's murder. You can't say, I was in fear for my life, and so I shot this guy running away from me in the back. I shot him because he was running away from me. I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to shoot somebody in the back without being charged for murder. I can only defend myself when I feel there's an imminent threat of serious bodily harm or death. So some guy's running at me with a knife and he's 5 feet away, I can shoot him. Because that's bona fide. But I can't shoot somebody running away from me. I thought he had a gun. I thought he had a gun. How many times do these parasites say, I thought he had a gun? And that gets him cleared of murder. I thought he had a gun. How do they get away with it? Because the cops, the judge, the prosecutor, the jailers, the sheriff, the state cops, the Fed cops are all in it together. They're all in it together. And why is it that so many people who have traffic violations get convicted if they go to court? About 3% of us are found not guilty. That's just so it has the appearance of being a fair trial. Well, I remember, geez, boy, it was years ago, but yeah, I think there was a guy that got found not guilty. I think, maybe. But everybody else gets found guilty. Fines and court costs. So you might want to do what I did, class, and put on your tax return, if you choose to pay taxes as I have. It's all above board. I don't cheat. But I tell them that now, if they want my attention, it's going to cost them $250 an hour, 8 hours minimum. And I mean it. I'm sick of it. Rich Sheben, you've been pretty quiet. Rich, you there? I know you're there.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, are you...
What we need, guys, is patriots, not politicians. Okay? Now, I've said many times to be aware of official authorities and so-called experts. And, Randy, I totally agree that the people are turning into sheeple. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I've been on the air for 6 years. That's why I give talks. That's why I do all the things that I do, is to wake people up and make people realize that we're being distracted, dumbed down, and divided by the so-called powers that be. But I also talk a lot about the Communist Manifesto. I talk about Alinsky and Marx and things of that nature. But I'm going to basically bear with me here, and I'm going to have to do most of it after the break. But
Yeah.
for the 13 rules of radicals for Alinsky, and I'm just going to go through 3 of them, Vince, after the break, and show you how this applies to what's happening right now regarding the context of our discussion.
Randy, would you like to stay with us?
No, I got to hit it, but y'all have a great morning.
Feel free to call in anytime, Randy. You're one of us. I interrupt this broadcast for a very important announcement. Fresh fruit in 18 states is recalled over possible listeria risk. Okay? And this is from the HuffingtonPost.com. Fresh fruit in 18 states recalled over possible listeria risk. Plums, nectarines, and peaches sold at Aldi, Costco, Walmart, and other stores could be contaminated. Fruit sold in Walmart, Costco, Aldi, Fairway Market, Hannaford, and Market Basket stores are also subject to the recall, and the affected distributed fruit was also at small retail establishments in Alabama, California, Georgia, Illinois, Kentucky, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, Mississippi, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Virginia. What are we talking about? At Aldi, nectarines, peaches, and plums in Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. Costco in California, nectarines. Fairway Market in New York, nectarines and peaches. Hannaford in Maine, there were peaches. And Market Basket in Massachusetts, nectarine and peaches. And Walmart, where nectarines in Kentucky, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia. Some 1,727 cartons of peaches, 1,207 cartons of nectarines, and 365 cartons of plums are being recalled. The origin of the country was Chile. So, word to the wise, I would suggest avoiding eating plums, nectarines, and peaches until this is over. Just my thought. Rich?
Well, let me go back to, we only have a couple minutes here, so let me go back to my point. I just want to read a couple of things from the Saul Alinsky's 13 Rules for Radicals, which I believe Hillary Clinton did her thesis on. And I believe Alinsky dedicated the book to Lucifer, but that's not my point. My point is, I'm going to read a couple of things to you under the 13 Rules for Radicals. Number 11, if you push a negative hard enough, it'll push through and become a positive. Violence from the other side that can win the public to your side because the public sympathizes with the underdog. So what the police are doing is trying to say, oh, we're going to get shot, and blah, blah, blah. They're trying to get sympathy and beat the underdog. Even though I do everything in my power to stick up for the police in many instances for many years. Basically, there's certain people in every group, in every institution who's allowing themselves to be bought and paid, and the true victims are the people, the little people, the poor and the middle class. Number 13, pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Cut off the support network and isolate the target from sympathy. Go after people and not institutions. People hurt faster than institutions. I mean, this is real demonic stuff. And this is why, a group, a police station, the FBI, the CIA, they're an institution. Number 1, power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have. Power is derived from 2 main sources, money and people. Have-nots must build power from flesh and blood. That means the little people, we either have to go to war on the streets, or the powers that be will not allow us to use common sense and logic and practice what you preach laws. And this is why if people woke up to this, if enough people said, let's do practice what you preach laws, let's have self-sufficiency preparedness schools around the country, let's get rid of this Alinsky-Marx Communist Manifesto sandwich that would be enforce-fed, which is basically all subsets under political correctness, just like victim group status and group identity politics. When I say things over the years, I try to concentrate not just on things that are being done to us and that are wrong or illegal. I try to give ideas and solutions for everything that we talk about. But people need to be aware of Alinsky. They need to read it. They need to read Marx. They need to read the Socialist Manifesto and Cloud with Piven. They need to realize that the game plan, the playbook, is being followed by the elite to the letter.
Yeah. And class, if you'd like to listen to us on the Ron Gibson channel on YouTube, Ron Gibson strips out the commercials, and you can find us. And I'd love to see your comments. You can listen to us on YouTube, on the Ron Gibson, Gibson channel, and post your comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say, see what you have to say. Rich Shealy, thank you so much for being with us, spending so much of your time.